Islam. It is one of the major world religions founded by the Prophet Muhammad in Arabia, the island of Arabs, in the early 7th century CE. Islam is an Arabic word, which means surrender, specifically, surrender to the will of the one God, called Allah in Arabic. It is a monotheistic religion centered on the belief in one God, Allah. Allah is viewed as the sole God, creator, sustainer, and restorer of the world. The will of Allah, to which human beings must submit, is made known through the sacred scriptures, the Quran, which Allah revealed to his messenger Muhammad. Muhammad is considered the last of prophets, including Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Solomon, and Jesus, and his message simultaneously consummates and completes the revelations attributed to earlier prophets. Retaining its emphasis on an uncompromising monotheism and a strict adherence to certain essential religious practices, Islam was taught by Prophet Muhammad to a small group of followers and got to spread rapidly through the Middle East to Africa, Europe, the Indian subcontinent, the Malay Peninsula, and China. By the early 21st century, there were more than 1.5 billion Muslims worldwide. Although many sectarian movements have arisen within Islam, all Muslims are bound by a common faith and a sense of belonging to a single community. In this series, we will learn about fundamental beliefs and practices of Islam and the connection of religion with society in the Islamic world. From the very beginning of Islam, Muhammad had inculcated a sense of brotherhood and a bond of faith among his followers, both of which helped to develop among them a feeling of close relationship that was accentuated by their experiences of persecution as a nascent community in Mecca. The strong attachment to the tenets of the Quranic revelation and the conspicuous socio-economic content of Islamic religious practices cemented this bond of faith. In 622 CE, when the Prophet migrated to Medina, his preaching was soon accepted, and the community state of Islam emerged. During this early period, Islam acquired its characteristic ethos as a religion uniting in itself both the spiritual and temporal aspects of life, and seeking to regulate not only the individual's relationship to God, but human relationships in a social setting as well. Thus, there is not only an Islamic religious institution, but also an Islamic law, state, and other institutions governing society. By the 20th century, the religious or private and the secular or public were distinguished by some Muslim thinkers and separated formally in certain places such as Turkey. This dual religious and social character of Islam, expressing itself in one way as a religious community commissioned by God to bring its own value system to the world through the jihad, explains the astonishing success of the early generations of Muslims. Within a century after the Prophet's death in 632 CE, they had brought a large part of the globe from Spain across Central Asia to India under a new Arab Muslim empire. The period of Islamic conquests and empire building marks the first phase of the expansion of Islam as a religion. Islam's essential egalitarianism within the community of the faithful and its official discrimination against the followers of other religions won rapid converts. Jews and Christians were assigned a special status as communities possessing scriptures and were called the people of the book and therefore were allowed religious autonomy. They were, however, required to pay a per capita tax called jizya, as opposed to pagans, who were required to either accept Islam or die. The same status of the people of the book was later extended in particular times and places to Zoroastrians and Hindus, but many people of the book joined Islam in order to escape the disability of the jizya. A much more massive expansion of Islam after the 12th century was inaugurated by the Sufis, who were mainly responsible for the spread of Islam in India, Central Asia, Turkey, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Beside the jihad and Sufi missionary activity, another factor in the spread of Islam was the far-ranging influence of Muslim traders who not only introduced Islam quite early to the Indian East Coast and South India, but also proved to be the main catalytic agents beside the Sufis in converting people to Islam in Indonesia, Malaya, and China. The vast variety of races and cultures embraced by Islam has produced important internal differences. All segments of Muslim society, however, are bound by a common faith and a sense of belonging to a single community. With the loss of political power during the period of Western colonialism in the 19th and 20th centuries, the concept of the Islamic community, instead of weakening it, became stronger. The faith of Islam helped various Muslim people in their struggle to gain political freedom in the mid-20th century, and the unity of Islam contributed to later political solidarity. What are the 5 pillars of Islam? During the earliest decades after the death of the Prophet in 632 CE, certain basic features of the religious social organization of Islam were singled out to serve as anchoring points of the community's life and formulated as the pillars of Islam. To these 5 pillars, the Khawarji group added a 6th pillar called jihad, which was not accepted by the general community. The 5 defined pillars of Islam are the shahada, which means a profession of faith, the prayer, the zakat, which means purification, fasting, and the hajj. The first pillar is the profession of faith. There is no deity but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God, upon which depends membership in the community. The profession of faith must be recited at least once in one's lifetime, aloud, correctly, and purposively, with an understanding of its meaning and with an assent from the heart. From this fundamental belief, other beliefs are also derived. First in angels, then the revealed book Quran, a series of prophets, and the belief in the last day or the day of judgment. The second pillar consists of 5 daily canonical prayers. These prayers may be offered individually if one is unable to go to the mosque. The first prayer is performed before sunrise, the second just after noon, the third in the late afternoon, the fourth immediately after sunset, and the 5th before going to bed. Each prayer consists of 2 to 4 genuflection units. Each unit consists of a standing posture during which verses from the Quran are recited in certain prayers aloud. According to Islam, 5 daily prayers cannot be waived even for the sick, who may pray in bed and, if necessary, lying down. When on a journey, the 2 afternoon prayers may be followed one by the other wherein the sunset and late evening prayers may be combined as well. The third pillar is the obligatory tax called zakat, which means purification, indicating that such a payment makes the rest of one's wealth religiously and legally pure. This is the only permanent tax levied by the Quran and is payable annually on food grains, cattle, and cash after 1 year's possession. Zakat is collectible by the state and is to be used primarily for the poor, but the Quran mentions other purposes, such as education and healthcare facilities and creating facilities for travelers. After the breakup of Muslim religio-political power, payment of zakat became a matter of voluntary charity dependent on individual conscience. In the modern Muslim world, it has been left up to the individual, except in some countries, such as Saudi Arabia, where the Sharia, the Islamic law, is strictly maintained. Fasting during the month of Ramadan is the 4th pillar of Islam. Fasting begins at daybreak and ends at sunset, and during the day, eating, drinking, and smoking are forbidden. The Quran states that it was revealed on the night of power, which Muslims generally observe, on one of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. For a person who is sick or on a journey, fasting may be postponed until another equal number of days according to Islam. Also, the elderly and the incurably sick are exempted through the daily feeding of one poor person, if they have the means. The fifth pillar is the annual pilgrimage called Hajj to Mecca, prescribed for every Muslim once in a lifetime, provided one can afford it and a person has enough provisions to leave for his family in his absence. A special service is held in the sacred mosque of Mecca on the 7th of the last month in the Islamic calendar. Pilgrimage activities begin by the 8th and conclude on the 12th or 13th. All worshippers enter the state of Ihram in Mecca. They wear two seamless garments and avoid physical intimacies, the cutting of hair and nails, and certain other activities. The principal activities consist of walking 7 times around the Kaaba, a shrine within the mosque, the kissing and touching of the black stone called Hajar al-Aswad, and the ascent of and running between Mount Afa and Mount Marwa 7 times. At the second stage of the ritual, the pilgrims proceed from Mecca to Mina, then they proceed for Arafat, where it is essential to hear a sermon and to spend one afternoon. The last rites consist of spending the night at Muzdalifah, a place between Arafat and Mina, and offering sacrifice on the last day of Ihram, which is known as Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice.